It's said that some things are meant to be forgotten, but what happens when they refuse to stay buried? When I first moved into the old Victorian house, I thought I was just looking for peace, a quiet place to rebuild after everything fell apart. But the house had its own secrets, secrets that, once uncovered, would change me forever. And those secrets, they were never meant to be found. I had been searching for a place to escape, a place to forget the life I left behind in the city, a toxic job, a broken relationship, and endless sleepless nights. When I found the old Victorian house on the outskirts of town, something about it whispered to me. The price was too low, almost absurdly low for such a grand structure, but I didn't question it. I was desperate to leave behind everything that haunted me. The house was beautiful in its decay. The tall windows let the sunlight pour in, casting long, eerie shadows on the walls. The woodwork was intricate, telling stories of the past, stories that had long been forgotten. No one had lived in the house for years, yet it still felt alive, as if the very bones of the house were waiting for me. I moved in quickly, hoping the distance from the city would ease my mind. But the moment I stepped inside, I felt the weight of the house's silence. The air was thick, filled with an oppressive stillness, as though the house was holding its breath. I tried to push it aside. After all, it was just an old building. But the feeling never went away. It began with subtle things. A creak in the floorboards, a soft scratching sound in the walls at night. I tried to ignore it, telling myself that it was just the house settling. But then, it happened again. A scraping noise coming from beneath the floorboards. At first, I dismissed it as an animal, maybe rats, or the house just being old. But then the noises began to get more distinct, as if someone, or something, was moving beneath the floor. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to find out what was causing it. One evening, while sweeping the dusty old living room, I noticed something unusual. One of the floorboards was slightly lifted, as if it had been disturbed. My heart raced as I crouched down to investigate. With the edge of the broom, I nudged the board, and to my surprise it gave way easily, revealing a dark, narrow space beneath the house. A heavy smell hit me, a musty odor mixed with something foul. It wasn't just old dust. It was something darker, something that made my skin crawl. I shone the flashlight into the opening, and there in the pitch-black shadows I saw it. A door. A small, rusted door, hidden beneath layers of dirt and debris. My breath caught in my throat. Who would hide a door under the floorboards? Why? The door was old, its iron hinges covered in grime, but it was surprisingly heavy when I tried to open it. After a few moments of struggling, it creaked open with a sound that echoed throughout the empty house. I felt a rush of cold air hit me, and the light from my flashlight flickered, as if fighting to stay on. I stepped into the small, confined space beneath the house, feeling a strange unease creeping up my spine. The room was tiny, barely enough space for me to stand, and it smelled of rot and decay. The walls were lined with old, forgotten relics, books with faded covers, broken picture frames, and a few objects that didn't seem to belong. But it was the photograph on the small wooden table that caught my attention. It was a black and white photograph of a family, an older man and woman standing with a child. The child's face was striking. Her eyes were too wide, too vacant. She stared directly into the camera, but there was something about her gaze that unsettled me. It was as though her eyes weren't really looking at the camera, but through it, directly into me. I couldn't look away. As I held the photograph in my hand, I heard it, the whisper, "Leave, leave now." It was soft, a voice barely above a breath. I spun around, the flashlight shaking in my hand, but there was nothing there. No one. The room was silent again. That night the house felt different. The air was colder, thicker, as if something was pressing in around me. I tried to sleep, but the whispering continued, growing louder each night. Leave, leave. You shouldn't have found it. The voices came from the walls, from the very floor beneath me. I thought I was losing my mind. The photograph of the little girl in the hidden room seemed to change every time I looked at it. Her eyes grew darker, and sometimes I thought I saw her smile, just the faintest hint of a grin on her face. But when I turned the photo over to check for any writing, I found nothing, just the empty back of the frame. I began to feel eyes on me. At first, it was a sensation, a cold, creeping awareness that I was being watched. But soon, it became more than that. At night, I would hear soft footsteps, the creak of the floorboards above me, the rustling of something in the darkness. One evening, I decided to confront the house. I went back to the hidden room beneath the floorboards, determined to understand what was happening. I shone my flashlight over the objects scattered around the room, looking for any clue that could explain the odd presence. Then I found it. Behind a stack of old books, scratched into the wall, was a message. She's waiting. She'll never leave. A chill ran through me. The room felt colder than ever, and the whispering returned, louder and more frantic than before. She's waiting for you. Come closer. Come closer. I tried to leave, but as I turned to climb out of the small room, I froze. The door had closed behind me, locking me inside. Panic surged in my chest. I tried to pull it open, but it wouldn't budge. My breath quickened, and I heard the sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from behind me. I knew I wasn't alone. The darkness in the room shifted, as though something was moving within it. I spun around, the flashlight trembling in my hand, and that's when I saw her, the little girl from the photograph. She was standing in the corner, her wide eyes fixed on me, her lips twisted into a silent scream. I backed away, my heart pounding, my pulse racing. The room seemed to close in on me, the walls pressing closer, the whispers growing louder, more insistent. The girl didn't move, but her presence was overwhelming, suffocating. You shouldn't have come here. You shouldn't have opened it. The voice now filled the room, a cacophony of whispers, all speaking at once, as if they were coming from every direction. The little girl's face shifted. Her eyes, once vacant, now seemed to gleam with malevolent knowledge. And then I realized she wasn't a ghost. She wasn't a spirit. She was part of the house itself, a thing trapped in time, waiting to drag me into its web. The floor beneath me began to crack, and I felt the pull. Something was dragging me down into the dark space below. The house had taken me. It had claimed me, just as it had claimed those who came before me. The house stands empty now, abandoned once again. But it isn't really empty. The little girl's photograph still hangs on the wall, and the whispers can still be heard in the dead of night. Anyone who dares enter will hear her voice, feel her presence, and know the truth. Some rooms are meant to be forgotten, but some things refuse to stay buried. Did you enjoy the story? If you love tales of the eerie, the unsettling, and the supernatural, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another chilling story. Leave a comment below with your thoughts. What do you think really happened to the house? Could you ever step foot in a place like that? Don't forget to share this with anyone who loves a good scare. Until next time, keep your lights on, because you never know what's lurking in the shadows.